Me and my, now girlfriend of 3 years lived in a 2-bedroom apartment which I pay for by myself, as I make enough money to afford it and I didn't want to trouble her by pressing her with a bill for a place that is a tiny bit out of her price range. Instead we use a meter and pay the bill through my account, with her compensating her spend. We also have always been big on trust since both of us have been cheated on in previous relationships, and didn't want to go through that again in this one. The fact that I pay solely this apartment is important as it allows her to spend her money on things like more expensive gifts and the occasional excursion for us, which of course I pay in part for. Also, the fact that we are big on trust means we tell each other a lot about our lives and future plans. Anyways, she was always a fan of these trips abroad and loved traveling, and for the most part our trips were always fun. However, about 3 days ago she announced that she had bought tickets for a solo backpacking trip across South America which she was going to go on Friday, and that she had been planning this for months. First I asked if I could come, to which she said no because she would be discovering herself on this trip, and when I asked why hadn't she told me, she said because I wouldn't have allowed, or at the very least not wanted, her to go, especially alone. Which is mostly true. Well, an argument ensued and at some point I finally put my foot down. It went something like this. GF, why can't I just go explore the world and live life to its fullest? Me, you can, without me or the security of my home, pack your bags and get out. I believe it was the right thing to do as she didn't pay for the apartment anyways, and so didn't have any right to demand to stay, plus I was willing to give her money for a hotel for a week, which she refused. That night she went to her parents' home an hour away and my phone was blown up with people calling me a controlling idiot and the like. My question is, am I really an idiot for this? Not the idiot. Finding herself on a solo backpacking trip likely includes sleeping around. I'm an American living in South America and I've seen it quite a bit with foreigners here. Also, she's able to pay for this trip by living off your paycheck, basically. She lived in a free-to-her apartment, and you partially financially funded other trips. At the very least, she should have told you what she was planning. Springing this on you by surprise is a very large red flag. Not the idiot. What stands out the most to me is that she wants to go solo to discover herself, which is usually code for loving her way through the trip with any guy that catches her fancy. 2, and a big one for me, she essentially got to live for free with minimal expenses so she could have her income to use whichever way she wanted, including this trip. I honestly think she waited to tell you to provoke you into breaking up with her so she could be free on this trip with no attachments while she's hooking up with whoever she wants. Don't be surprised if she calls you when she gets back telling you she misses you and wants to move back in and whatever else. Stand your ground when that happens. You're the idiot. You come off as controlling, and if that's how you come off in a post where you're clearly trying to come off as the good guy, then you're probably really controlling. If she was scared of how you'd react if she told you in advance, then I don't blame her one bit for not telling you. Sounds borderline abusive to me. She's better off without you in her life, I think. People in this thread have some serious issues when their first assumption is that she's doing it to mess around. That you ended a relationship of 3 years with an ultimatum of this degree also screams controlling. I've been with my husband for 10 years. We have been married for 5 of those years. He has suffered horrific trauma at the hands of his dad. His parents were married and expecting twins when his mom suffered some kind of hemorrhage and she ended up with eclampsia. My husband's mom and twin sister did not make it. But my husband did after a period of time in the NICU. His dad told him it was his fault they died. He had grandparents who meant the world to him and tried to shield him from his dad's anger, but when he was 8 years old they died also. His father then blamed him. He spent the next 10 years hearing day after day that he was the reason. At no point did he have another person to reassure him it wasn't. When we met he had just started to heal. He was away from his dad and attending therapy. It was a very big fear of his that what his dad said was true. He is a wonderful man and my nieces and nephews adore him. He was always so good with them and the rest of my family. In January 2020 I was pregnant and we went for a scan where we learned I had miscarried. As soon as my husband heard this, something inside of him broke. He started to unravel. He was in the middle of a mental health crisis. He was doing this weird manic laugh that was also a sob. He ran out of the room and I followed after him, concerned. My mom and sister both work at the hospital. Sister's a nurse while mom worked in the little gift store. Both saw him in this worst moment. They saw as medical personnel were forced to intervene because he was in the middle of a breakdown, hysterical and totally out of it. He was totally broken and nothing could reach him. It was the scariest moment of my life. The worst moment of his. And they judged him for laughing. Then when they told the rest of the adults in my family, they also judged him. All of my family were aware of his history. He told them about it years ago. My husband ended up under the care of a psychiatrist who suggested he needed a lot more help than therapy could provide. Instead of understanding, my family no longer wanted him around. They said a man who could laugh at his own wife's miscarriage was not the kind of man they wanted around the kids. I told them I would not leave him behind. My niece is turning 12 this year and is having her first big party since COVID. She called and said she wanted us there, but she hadn't seen us on her mom's list. I told her we wouldn't be able to come and that I was sorry. We both were. She was upset and asked why she never saw us. Why we wouldn't come to her birthday party. Why we missed them all now. I told her that my husband was not welcome by the other adults in the family anymore. She apparently yelled at her parents and mine. Then I got crap from them for telling her what I did. They said I had no business saying that. Am I the idiot? Holy hell, not the idiot. So much not the idiot. I am so sorry you and your husband lost your child like that. And I'm so sorry, especially, for your husband. That must have opened fresh wounds. The scarring on that is deep and concerning. No, I don't think that you and your husband should be surrounded by people who totally judge him based on an extremely vulnerable moment in both of your lives. His mental health comes first. I hope you and him are doing better. Not the idiot. They made the rule, they don't get to hide it. Good on you for opening those blinds. I hope your husband has been able to receive the help he needed and stabilize again, and please accept my sympathy regarding your miscarriage. In the face of your own trauma and sadness, he's still got wonderful support in you. You are awesome. And on my own behalf, thank you. The world needs more folk like you. The kind who persist even though we don't believe we're worth it, and when the work feels too hard, and the problem never ending. Thank you. Not the idiot. Your family is horribly cruel and ignorant knowing his history. Your niece yelled at them because apparently at nearly 12 she is capable of compassion and smart enough to realize a psychotic break. Too bad the adults in that family apparently lack both intelligence and compassion. How is your husband now, if you don't mind my asking? I hope you two can heal together. Just remember, family is what you make it, and your family is not acting like a family to you or your husband. Shame on them. My parents divorced when my sister, 20, and I, 19, were 5 and 6 years old. She met her husband 3 years later. He was a widower with a 7-month-old son. I think he was 7 months old when they met. She instantly moved them in and started claiming his son as her own and raising him like us. She got engaged to him, and a few weeks before the wedding our dad died. By this point my mom had just become estranged from her entire extended family. She told my dad's parents that if they wanted to see us again soon, they would need to come to her wedding and watch all 3 of us, including my stepbrother. She then told them after the wedding that going forward if they wanted to see us, or spend time with us, they had to include him. They hadn't wanted to. They tried to argue for time with just us, offering to pay for it all 100%. But mom said no. She said they needed to come to the house and make an effort with all 3 and not just take 2 with them. My sister and I would argue with mom over one day in particular. My dad's birthday. We celebrated that every year with dad's family after he died, but she wouldn't even let that day be just us and them. Our stepbrother had to be there. She said they did not get to be just our family and we shouldn't see him as any less deserving of being present. But we did. He was not our dad's kid, and had never met him. So why was he deserving of being there? I never got that. She called us selfish for the mindset. Last year I turned 18 and I moved in with my girlfriend. Once I left home, my stepbrother was no longer invited to anything to do with my dad's family. He no longer saw them. My sister and I also stopped spending any time at mom's house. Then we stopped speaking to them at all. It was quiet for several months, and then last week mom showed up where I work and demanded we talk. She told me how she was tired of one of her kids being left out and how sick was it to discard him that way, and why weren't my sister and I advocating for him. I told her she only had one kid, her stepson, and that my sister and I were no longer her kids and my family were no longer forced to include him to see us, and that it was all her fault for forcing it in the first place. Then I wished her luck, which was kinda sarcastic, not gonna lie, and then asked her to leave. She texted me later that night to say she had been a good mom to all three of us and to say she only had one kid was low. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Resentment built over time is a lot harsher than the unrealized punishment dished out. The fact that she didn't even consider her first two children and the loss of losing your father was taken so lightly. As for your stepbrother and all, that was the package deal she opted into when she chose to be with his father. She should have been more open, communicated the concerns across the board with everyone involved, instead of fitting everything to her own agenda. Seems like an unfortunate outcome for everyone, when if things were considered more, you guys might have gotten along more, but that's my opinion. Look, it's great that people are trying to be inclusive to their SOS children, raising them like their own biological kids, not seeing them any different than their own. I think it's brilliant. And they have the right to expect their own family to accept their SOS children as their grandkids, nephews, etc. However, those kids are absolutely nothing to the family of the previous SO. And it borders on cruel to expect the parents, siblings, etc. of the now deceased previous SO to pretend that their sons or brothers' ex's kids are related to them in any way. They aren't. Not by blood, not by law, not by marriage, not by anything. To insist on the contrary only hurts everyone involved. So, not the idiot. Your mom nearly caused you to lose half your extended family. She needed a reality check. Do the people in these comments realize that OP's mom and dad divorced before OP's dad died? If he had been alive, people would not expect their dad to care for his children's stepbrother, now would they? Whether the stepbrother is OP's family or not, that does not matter. OP's grandparents have no relation to him. The stepson of their ex-daughter-in-law is not their family and they should not be expected to include him in anything. OP, not the idiot. I'm very sorry for your loss and for having your stepbrother forced into it pretending it was his loss too. I have a roommate, we are both 23, we have been living together for a few months. I had another roommate before her but she left when the lease was up, so I have been in the app for a year longer than her. It's a one-bedroom app and since I was there first I have the bedroom and she is in the living room with a privacy screen separating the living room and her bedroom. When she first moved in I had all the living room furniture already, so she didn't have to bring any. Just kitchen stuff and her personal stuff. Living with her has been okay. She has friends over some weekends and they are not the kind of people I would associate with. They haven't done anything but they give off a certain vibe to other people that I don't want to be associated with, and honestly I just find them gross and don't trust them. They usually come over for an hour then they go out, so I haven't had to put up with them much. Last weekend she told me she was having the same friends over but they were gonna spend the night in a hangout and order in some food and asked me if I wanted to join. I was mad because it's fine if they are going to come over to hang out before going out, but to have to deal with these gross people for a whole night was not something I wanted to deal with in my own home. I don't want them using my things. I told her she was free to have her friends over but they couldn't use any of my stuff including the couch, TV, kitchen table, anything that I bought. We got into an argument about it and she ended up leaving and going out with her friends anyway. She came home yesterday afternoon and now everything has been awkward and she hasn't said a word to me. But it's my stuff and I'm being nice enough to let her have these people over. I don't think I need to let them use my things too. Maybe if she is mad she should get better friends. You're the idiot. This girl doesn't even have an effing bedroom, but I'm guessing you make her pay for everything split down the middle. If you have such a problem with your things being used in a common space, then don't put them in a common space. Either put your things in your own room, or swap bedrooms so this poor girl can allow a friend to sit while she waits for this lease to be up, and then runs away from you as fast as she can. You're the idiot. The living room and kitchen are shared spaces. You made the choice to leave your own furniture in these spaces when she moved in. In that circumstance, she and her friends certainly have the right to use these shared spaces as well as the furniture in them. You have the right to remove your furniture and allow her to move on her own. But you don't have the right to tell her she can't use your furniture while it occupies the shared space. You are so the idiot. If your roommate is paying rent and utilities, she has every right to use what is in the apartment and have her friends over even if you don't like them. Are they a different race from you? Because I'm getting something bad. If you didn't want her or friends using any of your things, you should have let her bring more of her stuff, because not even letting her friends use the couch? That's way too far. You sound like you should just live with yourself.